Aloha, my name is Jeremy Vaeni, and I am the author of the all-new I Am to Tell You This, and I Am to Tell You It Is Fiction, which is the long-winded sequel to another long-winded title, I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land. And originally this book was going to be called The Skeleton Key to All Worlds. In fact, I first wrote the sequel to I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land years and years ago, and it was always in my head, The Skeleton Key to All Worlds. And when I originally wrote it, way back when, I think around 2006-ish, I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land came out in 2003, I began writing it because sequel things started happening. I mean, the most immediate thing, which actually made it into this book, was the most blatant quote-unquote alien abduction that I've ever had. Of course, that happened after I wrote I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land, and not during, so I couldn't use it, obviously, for that. So it immediately struck me like, oh, yeah, of course, wah, wah, wah. Here comes the thing for the sequel, right? But then things started happening to people in the book that were very sequel-ish. A few of those made the cut, but ultimately I decided not to go that route of just sort of, the joke was going to be checking up on people is fun. I wonder what happened to so-and-so. And then we would see what happened to so-and-so, but it's always something awful. You know what I mean? Like, it's never... I mean, some of these things were newsworthy, and some of those newsworthy things made it into this book, but they weren't good. Which, so you take that plus the aspect of the sense of humor of the first book, which was a lot of misogyny, which was a lot of cynicism, and that style of sort of Gen X humor, questionable racy humor, let's call it. And I was no longer that person, even though these things were unfolding like a sequel kind of thing. I was no longer that person because I'd had these, let's put this in air quotes, spiritual events unfold in my life. And I was no longer, I no longer felt the attachment to that type of humor. And in fact, it kind of hurt me to actually write some of the things that I did. So I didn't feel good writing it. And even some of that made it into this book. So what was going to be the Skeleton Key to All Worlds, which was going to actually be the sequel to I Know Why the Aliens Don't Land and come out prior to Urgency. Urgency was always supposed to be the last book of the trilogy, really. Well, now there's no trilogy. I decided to gut some of the stuff from the Skeleton Key to All Worlds and put that in Urgency. And then I've gutted the rest of it and put it in this book, or a lot of it, not the rest of it, because like I said, some of it has to do with people who didn't fare so well in life, at least at that point. Who knows now? Maybe they're just fine now. So what is this book then? Well, it is a book that starts off as a sequel, but I hope that you notice that there's something a little odd about the book, which is that in the first book, of course, it's sort of an autobiographical tale, and so I am the protagonist, and I hope that it's pretty obvious from the word go that I'm going to be the antagonist in this book, and that's all I'll say about that. So right up front, there's this sort of tonal shift, which may not actually be really apparent because the senses of humor are the same. It's just where they're coming from is actually dirtier in that, like a little more cruel, let's say. At least in my head, that's cruel. And that was what was hard to write originally about it. And even now, keeping it in there, I recognize the cruelty, but it's a necessary evil for the story arc. Because this is not just an alien abduction book. This is not just an autobiographical tale. Like I said, this is a multi-dimensional thing. So the starting point of even what the book is has a couple of points of evolution. And ultimately what this book is about is rebirth, is about resurrection, is about becoming our, I don't want to say better selves, but whole sense of self. Now, along the way, you're going to learn quite a bit about what it means to think deeply about alien abductions, about reincarnation, about UFOs, reality itself, archetypes, a whole host of things are going to be presented in a way that, even if you're familiar with me, go deeper than anything that I've ever said. So, and it's going to happen twice in the book. So some things I will, at some point in the book, say things about that are deep, or probably as deep as anything you've heard that is deep about these subjects, maybe deeper, but then is going to go even deeper. So I think if you stick with it, you're going to get a lot more out of it than just some laughs or being offended, because there's a lot of offensive things in there. I hope, if I've done my job. But again, I'm the antagonist, right? And that wanting to be the antagonist thing kind of stems from sort of a joke between Tim Banal, who hosts podcast Banal of America, and I, about like wanting to turn heel, because we're both wrestling fans, pro wrestling fans, although I think we're both dwindling in how big of a wrestling fans we are at this point. But at least back when we used to talk about it, we talked about, wouldn't it be amazing if we just turned heel in ufology, if just all of a sudden we became bad guys? And, for the most part, I have, like just by circumstance, of having gone after hypnosis, having gone after the sort of sacred cows in ufology, having questioned the things that we should all be questioning but don't, because it's become this belief system that we pretend is not a belief system. We pretend that we really are out seeking the truth, but no, we're really clamping down on what we think we know so that we can have a sense of control in the world and not feel fear. It's the same old MO that we tackle everything in life with, right? So that's what we've done here, and to call it into question is to get crapped on by everybody, or by a lot of people. Not everybody, but by a lot of people. And to question the cottage industry, to call it the cottage industry of hypnosis-driven books, to call them out for the nonsense that they are, is to wreak havoc on yourself. Let's put it this way. It's a great way to lose friends and never be invited to conferences. Ting!